Yeah, we're live.
Okay, I don't have the YouTube link yet to share. Okay, here we go. I'll throw this in the Gitter.
By the way, the agenda says October 10th.
What does the agenda say?
At the top, design and usability agenda October 10th. Sorry,
What's wrong?
it's date 10, October 10th. It's 24, right?
I'm looking at one that says 24th. Maybe
Then
this
the link
is
maybe it's linked.
last week's. That's likely. I'll make a new one. I noticed there was also a YouTube link in there. That was last week's YouTube link. So I think this agenda might have been copied from last week's agenda instead of from the template. But okay, let's try that
Okay.
one. I just put it in Gitter. Is that the right link?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, we're live, by the way.
All right. Little housekeeping there. Today is October 24th in California, October 25th in Australia, as I just learned. And this is our meeting on backdrop design and usability issues. It looks like this week we have a new issue on the API website, api.backdropcms.org. Maybe not a new issue, probably a very long-standing issue that we only newly discovered, where it says the site menu doesn't look great on phones. That is not surprising because the API site, I think, uses, I don't know, it's like one of our oldest themes that we've had. And so it would not surprise me if that side menu is not adequately displayed on mobile. I think we probably need to at least add hamburger collapsy thing to it. I haven't looked at it, but there's probably a lot of love that it needs in order to make it work right. I believe that Justin has set up our weekly sanitized backups of the API site, so it should now be easier for other people to work on our public-facing sites. The code base is in GitHub if anyone wants to file a pull request. I expect, though, that this is going to be a configuration change. So the way that would work is you would set up the site locally on your work environment, whatever that is, make whatever change it is, and then copy the configuration file or files that have been changed into the staging directory, commit them and file a pull request. And then when we do a sync on live, it'll sync from staging to live production and we'll get the change in. So it's a fairly straightforward thing technically, but it's a sort of complicated workflow. But if anyone wants to help us fix the menu on the API site, that's a good task that I think is possible. On backdropcms.org, we have a handful of outstanding issues. Some of them are related to content, some of them design, some of them organization. They're all listed in the backdrop ops backdropcms.org queue. I don't think we should cover any of them this week because we haven't made any changes to any of those issues since our last design meeting, or any of the design issues anyway. But there's a lot of stuff in there that we could use help from people on. And also, now that we have our sanitized backups, hopefully that'll be easier for people to get a hold of there too.
I just confirmed they're there. They're up to date.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Justin, again for getting those going. Next up is Backdrop the product, and we have two sets of issues we're going to talk about today. The first one is around user experience. I think one of these issues we talked about, or several of these issues we talked about last week, maybe in the developer meeting. I remember talking about them recently. Maybe it was Design 2 weeks ago. But the first one is to change the drop-down menu behavior. And part of this is we're using the standard Smart Menus JavaScript library. We should look at what they're doing, see if we need to do any updates to our JavaScript code to pull in any improvements they've made. But we have noticed that user experience is, it's often that someone will hover over links all the way down to the bottom before they click on them, and they'll miss the like landing page links at the top. And so one of our primary suggestions was to just duplicate the top link as the first link in the lower menu, and people will be more likely to click on it. But there's also some recommendations for how that could be handled on, the menu could be handled on mobile. Right now, when you click on a menu link, it'll open you click on a parent link, it'll open the set of child links, and then you click on the parent link again to go to the landing page. So also having that top level link duplicated might remove the need for the double click on the parent item, which is a little strange. So that's something worth thinking about changing. That could be a kind of a hard fix, because if those changes are not in the Smart Menus library, which I expect they're not, we will have to add our own JavaScript separate from the Smart Menus library in order to override those behaviors. And that might be a rather complicated technical jQuery JavaScript person challenge. I'm not sure I'm capable of doing that. So we'd have to roll that over to someone who knows how to do that. It's just like kind of trying to figure out a way that we can keep our copy of Smart Menus in sync with what the external library is doing and still have our customized behavior to it is going to be a little tricksy. So yeah, definitely looking for help on that one. I think the idea is great, though, to try and clean that up a little. That is issue 1442 in our core queue. The next issue, number 4081, is about cleaning up the text in our new layout, flexible layout creation tool, where we're trying to describe to people how to control the width of their rows. There are three options. There's one that doesn't put any classes on the row at all, and it always takes the full width of the page. And then there's two others that match the Bootstrap library. One of them is adding a container class, which gives it a fixed width at each size. So at one size, it would be desktop would be one size, tablet would be one size, mobile would be one size. And then the other one is sets not a fixed width, but a max width at each size. So it will still be squishy, but it will be squishy to a point. And that's a little bit different. So you'll still have like gutters on the left and right, but rather than something being like always one size and having a bunch of white space. And so it's really hard to figure out how to explain these three options to people who don't know what any of them are, don't know what Bootstrap is, don't know the differences between these things, especially without being able to visually show them each difference. And not only a static difference, but how, because they're different on each screen size, just trying to convey what's actually going on. So that issue, number 4081, has a bunch of suggestions in it about perhaps replacing the select list with radios, which I really like, adding a longer description for each. It would be great if we could figure out some way to add a visual reference in there, though I'm not sure I could come up with something that was clear for people, but it definitely needs more feedback. So if you have been confused by what those three options are when you're setting up a row, and you want to jump in on this issue and let us know what terminology might make sense to you, we've got some good suggestions in there already. We just need to figure out how to take that and turn it into a pull request that's significantly better than what we have now.
Jen, sorry, before you go on, I just don't have access to edit the agenda. I just sent a request to, if you can quickly add that. So while you go through the issues, I need to add some in the design.
Okay, I can add you too. I think.
It's just multiple accounts, yeah.
Yeah. I'm adding two of you. Yeah, so that's another thing. When you copy the template, all of the people that have ever requested access to the Google Agenda will get access to edit that one. And if you copy a single one, you have to remember to copy like all of the current editors in order to get the same. This won't let me actually invite you. It's saying the server encountered an error.
Here's what I
Oh.
Siri.
No, I don't need you right now. Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's go on and I'll just mention those issues when we get there. No worries.
Okay. That sounds good. The next issue is about cleaning up the installer user experience. This is issue number 3975. Gregory, I think you opened this quite a while ago. I think all of your feedback is really valuable there. I tried to go through the same process more recently and was like, oh my gosh, you're so right. This is really confusing. There are a bunch, I think, of separate issues in there that we could tackle. There's a PR I don't know how many of those that's cleaning up. I haven't checked it for a while, but it is in a need to review state. So anyone who's really passionate about cleaning up the user experience of installing modules using installer module to give that a test.
So I have addressed most of the issues there.
Okay.
The only one remaining is that because I've moved the whole bulk of the text that was either in a separate step into a field set. By default, field sets have capitalized uppercase letters. So we opened a separate issue to fix that. And that other issue is, bear with me, 4124 is the meta issue to reevaluate all capitalization in various user interface elements. So I think that's the only thing that remains. It's just that the field set draws too much attention now. But because we have a separate issue, I think that it's ready unless someone has objections to either the wording or.
Okay.
One thing that I need feedback for is that I made it so in order to avoid extraneous clicks, if the list of languages that is added is like up to 3 long, it renders it as a series of radius. If it goes more than that, then it falls back to to a select list, like a drop down.
Is that a new like form widget style?
Sorry?
Is that a new form API widget?
No, see how we can specify in the form API type equals radio or whatever.
Yeah.
So instead of specifying something, I just do a count of the options, and if it's less than 3, I render it as a radius. Or
I think we should find out some way to make that option available to everybody, because I think that's like a usability improvement that could be in any form. So maybe let's do that as a follow-up issue. Let's not do that here because that's going to make it.
Yeah, I'll raise a separate.
Yeah.
Like I have 3 or 4 issues with regards to like form API additions. Yeah. So I'll raise a new one for this. Yeah.
It's a great idea. Yeah. Okay, let's see.
Basically, sorry, there's a that's a good idea for multiple options, but if it's like basically the usability issue there is that if there is only single option and you render it as a drop down, then it makes no sense because people click on it just to find out that there's only one option. So we do have an issue for that.
To hide it entirely.
To make it read only, like, or yeah, make even the element read only so that people know that there's nothing else, or render instead of rendering what you call it a drop down
form element. You just tell them what value it is.
Yes, this is the only option, and there's a related issue for the 2 options that you get for the file system, the private files and that. So if you haven't specified the private files, it defaults to only one, and there's just a single radio option there.
Yeah.
But in that specific case, we decided that we just render the private files option disabled and a link to, hey, this is where you can configure.
Yeah, because that's also educational if you can show them the option and tell them where to set it rather than.
Yeah, that there's an option for safer files for the ones that need to be kept confidential, I guess. Yeah.
I couldn't find that issue, Gregory, the one about the field set being capital. Did you say it was 4174?
Sorry, just bear with me, my browser. So 4124 is the meta.
24. Okay.
24? Yes. Sorry, my browser is acting up today. Sorry, too many tabs open. And 4125 is specific for field sets. So the meta is meant to sort of like evaluate the rest of the UI.
Okay.
Like table headers, H1s or H2s it is. Like
okay.
That.
I just wanted to get that linked in here.
I would have, but I don't have access. That's why I said. Yeah.
It looks like field sets has a pull request.
Yes. So if we merge that one, then I think that the original issue about the installer, there's nothing else to fix unless there's more feedback. So these are almost ready to go.
Okay. We also have this issue about adding a theme function for human and machine names. I don't think there's any pull requests on there yet. It's just a discussion. I'm not sure that's important enough to continue to talk about in this meeting every week, but I'd love to have it make some progress. So I'm going to put it on my list for today, but I'm going to take it out of the weekly template for the design meeting so we don't have to talk about it next time. And then at least it moves forward.
Yeah, this is one of the issues that is mostly about consistency and reusing things instead of reinventing the wheel. It's time that we create listings.
Yeah. Okay. There's an issue here that says fields that are dependent on other fields should be indented.
Yes.
An issue.
So yes, there's a series of 3 issues. One of them has been committed. So that make the forms look a bit busy, I guess. So one that was recently merged and shipped with 1.14.1 was making, so there was a setting, a CSS setting that was making the field labels not be bold. So we fixed that. But now there's the field sets thing. And then the other thing is that if you have too many options, they're all in the same vertical, I should say, so like aligned vertically, I guess. But it would make more sense if you have them in tandem so that the grouping of what you're looking at is obvious. Because sometimes you have a set of, for example, radio options, and they have a label. And then if you add a checkbox, a single checkbox after it without it doesn't have a label because the actual checkbox thing is its label, then it seems as if it's part of the previous option. Whereas if the radio buttons were intended, then it would give it some sense of nesting. Yes.
Is there a issue?
No, I tried to find it, but maybe I used different wording, but I managed to create an issue and then link it here. I will.
Okay. Some other words you might use is in CTools, they had a different state system that actually added the indenting that our state system doesn't add for that dependency thing. So there might be something that's like add CTools dependency, whatever. Those might be words you could look for. And then the indenting of radio options, I think that's a separate issue. Specifically for like the node edit form, because we have the scheduling options are now radios, and then the underneath option for making it pathless is, I think, what gets mixed up in there. I don't know, maybe published. There's something in there that gets really confusing without that indentation. So that might have been part of that issue, and I'm not sure it was ever split off to be solve this for all field sets. I think we just mentioned that in there. But if it was, maybe it would be linked from there. I don't know.
So I wasn't aware of this CTools thing that you mentioned. So does that add an option in the field properties when you define
so in core, we have this pound states thing where you can say like show if whatever. So in the CTools version of that, when you added pound whatever it was, there was some like CTool dependency, I think. When it rendered it, it added the indentation in addition to the dependency.
As in specifying what you call it, parents of fields, like nesting.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how it worked. I think it was very similar to states. I know it added indentation. It also added like some extra validation and stuff. Like, you know how with normal states, the required thing, like you can add the indicator, but it doesn't change the form validation. So there's some stuff that the CTools version fixed. And I think we have some of that in Backdrop Core, but I know we don't have the indentation part. So
speaking again about related things with form elements, there was a UX issue. I know that I'm not going to be able to find it now because it's difficult to even describe it. So I can't remember what words I've used, but I have an issue raised for it. So when you have a set of, say, 4 options in radio buttons, and each one of them has a dependent states option. So you select something from the radio option, and depending on what you have checked, then more options appear after it. If there's many options, then that doesn't make sense to be there after it. So this was a request to sort of like inject its dependent states dependent option under each one of those radio buttons. But yeah, let me see if that was it.
This might just be the validation part,
Okay. Bear with me.
but yeah, I think that would be interesting too, and be able to inject one form element inside another element. That could be really hard because I don't think like HTML can do that, but I think we could do something clever with like positioning elements in a certain way. I don't know. We can figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, this is another one that I face. So each time that I try to work with a form API, I just come across inconsistencies, and I check if there's something respective like in d.org. So this does sound like one of those issues that I found at some point. Anyways, I'm trying to find that other issue that's relevant to this, but yeah, please go ahead.
So Form API is an amazing tool as a developer. It is a little kludgy when you're trying to use it as a human being after forms have been built. So I love that every time you use it, you come out with a lot of good ideas for how to improve it. And there are things that, like, you know, as someone who has written a lot of forms, I'm always like, I wish I could make it do this. And there's no like developer tool that does that. But I think going through all these and, you know, building it would be really helpful for.
Yeah, I think that there's like many edge cases that you come across, but we don't think about them until the moment where we just use this thing in a very prominent place.
Yeah.
That most people come across it, and then it becomes an issue.
Yeah.
Once that thing is making states hidden fields be required, it doesn't work. So if you require them and they're hidden because there's another checkbox that sort of like they throw a validation error, and this becomes prominent, I think, in the make custom blocks reusable thing.
Yeah.
So we go like through hoops to just get it to seem to at least be indicated as what you call it,
not
required,
but required. Looks like it's required. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's something that the CTools options also fixed. So we should look at what was in that and see if we can get that same fix in the core.
Yeah, we're not reinventing anything. I think that a little bit of research reveals respective either .org issues or Stack Exchange sort of like articles about it, and there's solutions from people. So yeah.
Great. All right, our last issue under the user experience column is promoted modules on the installer. I must admit I have not looked at this since the last time we talked about it, but I believe we needed a summary of what needs to get done because reading through the issue is sort of a doozy. But I would love to see that start to get some attention. Moving on to design issues, there are a couple of issues that we've been talking about for a while that all have had great feedback since our last meeting. So the first one is what to do about the background color on, it's not the page title, it's the site name.
Yep.
Sorry, that was wrong in the agenda. And it looks like Nate is happy to just completely remove it without worrying about backwards compatibility, so that if you were running a stock Backdrop site on Backdrop, when you rolled out the new version, the background color on your site title or site name would disappear. There's a recommendation in there that we could write a super complicated update hook that would switch everybody from using the default basis color to using a color module colorized version if they had color module enabled, where you could specifically color that part of the header. But my recommendation was to do sort of halfway where we would leave the color as it is now on mobile and just remove the color, make it transparent when we go back to desktop. And that way you wouldn't have to worry about trying to colorize only that one part. And in the color module, we could just change the label for that particular part of the page to say like mobile background color so that it would still work in the same way. It wouldn't have the backwards compatibility, but I personally think that would be seen as like a bug fix. I don't know if anyone's going to agree, where you're like, oh, I wish my title background wasn't different. Then you update and you're like, yay, it's fixed. But yeah, I think people who have already solved this problem in their custom themes aren't going to be affected at all, or in basis subthemes aren't going to be affected at all. But anyone who's running the default basis theme probably wants that color removed. I would say anyone who objects, because I don't know, please put something in the issue, because it would be great to get some feedback on that to make sure that that sort of assumption is okay to do.
Yeah, so I saw your last comment just a few minutes ago, and I agree that that's the easiest solution to go with. The only catch there is that we would say that, hey, this is the color that is being used on mobile, but the preview that we have next to the things is showing the desktop version, not the mobile.
But
it's just a small catch.
Showing a live version, so like if you squished it, you'd see it.
I think you may need to switch to mobile. Yeah.
It's difficult to control the actual width of that thing.
Yeah.
We could probably add some, like a library or some handles on the sides of it to control the width, but
yeah,
I just didn't do that because it
would
make it more complicated.
Yeah, let's worry about that in a follow-up issue. I think if we say mobile is the first word of the label, people will probably change it, save it, look at their site, make it whatever size, come back, change it again. They're going to know how to get there somehow. Maybe they'll open their phone. Look at their phone. I do that sometimes. Where like, no, I really want to see what it looks like on my phone. But yeah, and then we can see if it becomes a big enough feature request that people want to be able to see that preview on mobile. We'll come up with a better solution.
Yeah, there is a link at the top of the preview that says to open it in a new tab. So after they open it in a new tab, that they can squeeze it then and then see it there. It's not just the side-by-side thing that doesn't. Yeah, it's just that they will be changing a thing that will not reflect on the actual preview. That's but as you say, it can be a follow-up.
Yeah, I think that's okay. Okay, then the next issue is to remove a white gap in basis that appears underneath the hero image. I ran into this a couple of times too. I tried to place a second hero block and there's a little gap that shows up between them. It sounds like in the issue, everybody just sort of wants to remove the margin. My thought was if we could find a safer place to add the margin, even if we were targeting only the basis front page or only the basis boxed in layout, that might be a better way to do it. We can keep the margin, just wouldn't be on the hero. It would be on some other element.
Right. So I think under most, when you first install Backdrop, it's the header and then there's the hero block and then there's the page title. And I think if we moved the margin from rather being on the bottom of the hero block to being on the top of the page title, it would fix it and not change anything visually.
Yep.
That sounds good. I don't even see there isn't a page title on the home page even.
Well, I guess
maybe it's the main content or
there's this is a view, isn't it? Well, I think I agree. There's somewhere else that the page title div is still here. We should fix that too. I guess it has the main content marker in it. Huh. Well, I see the problem. But yeah, I would be content to put it on like the L wrapper inner div for only this layout on the homepage, something like that, so that basis remains unchanged. I don't know. We just have to figure out which element we can put it on safely.
Are these hero blocks being used sort of like to create? So I mean, the use cases that I saw in this issue were 2 hero blocks in a row.
Yeah.
But there may be the cases where you have a hero block, then some piece of content, then again a hero block, right? So does the problem manifest there as well? And would the solutions that we are discussing solve that too?
It would probably depend what you put in the middle. We should do some testing and see. Yeah.
Okay.
I know in this case, like on Boxton on the homepage, the hero blocks are going in the top region, where it might also be really different if you put them in different regions. Like if you put it in the main content region, it's going to behave differently. So I think we should just do some playing around with it, see if we find a safe place to put the margin on, put a bunch of stuff in a bunch of places, see what happens. And then the last issue relating to design is trying to figure out how to support SVGs in Core. The biggest issue here is that Core uses the built-in GD image library, which does not support SVGs. Last recommendation in that issue was just, there's a place in Core where we hard code the allowed file types for images. And I think the last recommendation is to remove that. And that way, if you have a different image library that does support SVGs, you can use them. You're not limited by backdrop. But I would also like to find some way to support SVGs in Core, even if that means we don't run them through image styles or any of the processing that GD needs to do. And we could put some kind of a warning on it that's like, this image won't be cropped, or I don't know, something somewhere where we can tell people that like you can still add an SVG, because a lot of times all you need is resize. You don't need a style for that. You just print it at the size you want. But if you needed something like grayscale or rotate, like those other things that do need GD, we would have to be like, sorry, this won't work on SVGs. So yeah, just something. I think we should look at the change Drupal 8 did for removing the hard-coded image types and see what else went in with that patch to Drupal 8 core, and see if there was other similar things where they've already solved this. So obviously I don't think the patch will apply to backdrop, but I think this solution might be very similar. So I think it's a great first step though. Just remove the hard-coded, the thing is not allowed, and then figure out how to solve problems when it is.
So we have a thing that includes, in one of the includes, in the files in the includes directory, we have a list of all the MIME type things, and this is outdated because the standards just keep evolving and there's things added there. So another task would be to update that list at some point or group it. And there's not, so now that we're talking about design issues, we introduced the file. Sorry, you've reached the last one, right?
Go ahead.
So we've introduced the file entity things, and where you specify the MIME types for each file type that you create. There's a huge list hidden in a So I took a look at some libraries that could easily fix, like they provided in a like nested thing with checkboxes that we can use, and selecting the top one, like if you select the application image or something, it selects all the subcategories of MIME types. That would be awesome to be done, and we wouldn't have to ask people to copy it from that list into the top thing with, on a separate line or comma separated or what have you. It would be a much better experience. Yeah. I haven't filed an issue for it. It's one of my open tabs someplace, but yeah.
Yeah. I also, every time I see that, I'm like, ugh, it's like, you look at it and you're like, this is a terrible interface. And then you look at what you have to do and you're like, this is a hard problem. So that's fantastic that you found libraries that have already solved it.
Yeah, there are actually 2 modules. It's a JavaScript something, and one of them is actually a jQuery included in jQuery, and it's called tree something, fancy tree something. And yeah, so it would solve a lot of issues. We could use it other places as well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And in the meantime, I found the issue that I was talking about, and it's a rather old one. So allow the title is sorry, the issue number is 2304, and it says allow nested form elements to be attached to radio and checkbox options. And I have two animated GIF thingies there, images that show a before and an after. It's just it's been so long that I'm not sure if the actual after that I have working there was actual code or I just mocked something up.
Yeah.
So what it does, it's instead of rendering all the states hidden options that are depending in the radio set right after the radio set, it renders each option under the respective radio set option.
Okay.
So this makes sense. The more options that you have, people won't have to scroll down to find the option that they just enabled.
Yeah.
That was shown by what? Yeah. It's one of my old favorites. I never get back to it, but it's always at the back of my head.
So many tabs.
Yes.
All right. Anything else you want to add?
I just wanted, just in general, so the purpose of this agenda is that we discuss certain things. Is this to serve as priority list that people that new people? I'm asking because we had some new people join the community recently, and they seem to be willing to contribute. So is this to serve as a list of things that they can pick if they can help them?
Yeah, I mean, I think generally with most of the things that we talk about in our weekly meetings, they should be the highest priority things. Sometimes they also include like the most recent things, right? If it's something that's timely or something people are focused on again, that'll come up. But I think in general, we do try and the things that we keep on the agendas are things that we think are high priority. I did notice that on this particular agenda, all three, or maybe just two of them, the two design issues are both labeled as low-hanging fruit bugs, which I thought was great, because that way we have some design-focused issues in that bug project for people to use if they want to use that. I think some of this other stuff, I mean, I guess they could be classified as bugs, but
Yeah,
I feel like, yeah, I don't know.
Not bugs, but UX UX tasks.
Yeah.
Which also do get can get in bug fix.
Yeah.
That's why we call them bugs. Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I don't think very many of them are in the bug project. It might be good to add them. I don't know which bucket they should go into, but
well, they're tasks, they're not bugs. So by definition, they shouldn't be there.
Okay.
There are things that can be improved, but not things that seem broken.
So should we have a dedicated list, for example, for new people who come to the project and maybe they're really interested in usability,
UX tasks,
high priority usability issues?
Yeah, usability.
So they don't have to try and find this Google Doc.
Yeah. Would you like me to create another sort of like a clone of the bugs thing that is called UX issues or UX tasks?
I have mixed feelings about that.
No,
let's
okay.
give the bugs thing a few more weeks and see if anyone's using it. And if they are, then let's do one for UX issues. Yes. I just feel like creating more things to manage things isn't helpful unless people are actually using them, because I'd rather spend my time doing the things than managing the things. But if managing the things makes them get done, then that's good. But I don't know which one is, I don't know. So
yeah, it's just that I don't have an official, like if someone asks me, like say on Gitter, I want to help with that generic bit, like UX issues, as we say now.
Yeah.
Where do I find them? We have already marked them with UX.
Yeah.
But which ones are important? Because there's heaps again.
Yeah. So what I usually do is be like, look in all the milestones for things tagged with UX. Those we know are high priority. Yes, sure. And if they're like, high priority UX issues, they will be tagged for the next bug release. And then if they aren't, like, look at the master list. It's the same thing with bugs, right? Like if there isn't really any priority assigned, how would you organize them? Look, if you want quick ones, you can look for ones with a good first issue tag. If you want ones related to a particular part of the user interface, like something like views, probably people aren't looking for issues to work on in Views, but you could add a keyword into that search. I don't know. I think
it's the same thing that worried Doc Wilmot with the bugs, that when he goes to the list, he saw like, if not hundreds of issues, and there's indicators for us that frequent the issue queue. Like you can look at the number of comments, for example. You can see when it was last updated, and these are usually good indicators, but sometimes things do get forgotten.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed, and this is why I've started this discussion, is that there have been certain issues that because there was no activity, because we were focusing on something, when we do that task, when we do the releases that says either bump the milestones or remove the milestones, we just remove the milestone altogether, and then they just get forgotten.
Yeah.
And they're really good issues, and some of them like maybe easy ones. Yeah, that's why I'm mentioning it. So the sort of like the bug list, because Doc Wilmot, the bug project, because sorry, go ahead.
That particular thing I don't think is going to happen anymore, because we have our new criteria for things being milestones have to have an advocate.
Yes.
But yeah, I also feel like the reason that worked was because if we marked something as high priority and nobody worked on it for 2 releases, it obviously isn't high priority. So
or we didn't have time for it.
Well, if we had time for other things that were higher, so it's like priority is an interesting thing, right? Because there's like real priority, which is the stuff we're working on for some reason is a priority, and then there's like conceptual priority, which is like we would love it if these things got done. And I think that what that was an indicator of is like real priority. Like, oh, if nobody's working on references, then maybe nobody really needs it.
It's not exactly that. It's so previously we had many, I won't say many, but multiple issues that were, say it's person's personal priority or they were advocating for it. But with that change that you mentioned before, we throttled that to a single thing per person. And instead of having a way to just keep the rest of them in their sort of like radar, we just move them in the general bucket, and then they get lost. That's the bit where they get lost.
Yeah. I feel like if somebody has a personal list,
I started doing
their own.
Yeah, I started doing sort of like trying to tackle that by assigning things to me so that I can find anything that's assigned to me. But then people said, yeah, but if I see something assigned to you, then
I'm not going
tells me that I'm not going to work on it.
Yeah.
So maybe we can have a policy that, because I've seen people do that. If something is assigned to a certain person and they have started working on a PR, they jump on the thing if they see that it hasn't been touched for like months or even years, and they say, hey, Kronos or whoever, do you mind if I...
We could also, like, if we get our bot working, we could say, like, if it's assigned to someone and they haven't worked on it in 2 months, remove the assignment. So we could have that automatically happen. But I feel like there are, like, GitHub has tools for this. I don't remember what they are. I think it's like you can follow issues or watch them or something, where you get like a personal list rather than like a
assigned thing.
Subscribe.
The only thing that I have is I use this browser extension. It's called GitHub Refined, and what it allows you to do is mark an issue as unread. So even if you have, see how when you go in the list, there's a blue indicator on the side that says that there's new comments that you haven't read.
Yeah.
So I have been using that, but it's an additional browser-specific add-on. It supports many browsers, but yes. So I get an extra button where, like in each issue on the sidebar, where it says subscribe, unsubscribe, which I'm subscribed to many things, so I get lots of emails, so I don't do that. I have an additional button just below it that says mark as unread.
Yeah, so I also have the problem where I am subscribed to everything. I don't know, sometimes it's a problem, sometimes it's a blessing.
No, it's a problem, especially with the queue being so big, and if the community gets even bigger, there's going to be, there already are many comments depending on how active we are. And especially during the last month of the minor releases, it gets really, really hectic.
What about, I don't know. I feel like, I feel like I've seen something like this. I think it might be, I also have other browser extensions turned on and I don't remember which one's
Yeah.
doing which thing, but we should figure out some problem for each person to be able to keep some
Yeah,
solution to be able to
it
keep
might be it might be easier for other people as well. Some people mention just use browser bookmarks and that's it. And some people might say, you know, if I cared about an issue that much, it's probably that I have created it and it doesn't work for me because it's like half of the queue.
Yeah. So I have my own process of like for every site that I work on that needs like a core patch, there's a documentation file in the site that references the core patch. So every single time
Yes.
I update the site, I revisit the issue. So the things that are like highest priority, like I have 8 sites that all have this problem, and that issue is going to get a lot of attention because if every core update, I'm going to be like, again, the same problem on every one of those sites. Every core update is going to get 8 revisits to the issue. But then there's a bunch of stuff that like just bothers me, that like the sites don't really need the patch. It's user experience improvement. It's going to make my life better, but the clients don't care, right?
Yes.
And so stuff like that, I definitely feel like could get lost.
Yeah.
But yeah,
In my situation, you remember that I'm not doing that professionally. So everything is annoying me because I try to put myself in the shoes of the end user, and it's like everything is annoying me. And
yeah,
I often get into it because I have my OCDs. I get into these what I call rabbit holes where I try to fix one thing and then this needs fixing as well. It's like create another issue for it.
I often do that too. I'll be working on something and I'll be like, oh, this interface, I just did this thing 4 times wrong and I got to create an issue. And it's like, I don't know if anyone else has ever had this problem, but it made me angry once, so I'm gonna fix it.
Yes, exactly. So it's like
After
annoyance.
Yeah,
it's an annoyance threshold thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And,
okay. I do think we need a solution for like people to keep track of their own stuff.
Yeah. No, this conversation helps. Like these conversations like this help.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be abusing the issue queue if it makes it harder for others, but at the same time, when I'm bored and I want to work on things, I want an easy way to get to the things that,
yeah.
So, my assumption so far is that I have been assigning myself to issues so that I can find them easily, and I've done that maybe 20 issues so that I have a bucket that I can look at and go to. If it annoys people, they can unassign me.
Yeah, I feel like in general, like what we tell people about assignments is if it's assigned to somebody else, don't work on it. Because
we shouldn't.
Working on
we shouldn't. That's what I'm saying. We should change that policy. If it's assigned to someone, so I have assigned a ticket to myself now. That
well, then we would have no way of somebody knowing if someone else is working on an issue. So I definitely think we shouldn't change that process, because otherwise, like everyone's going to be working on one issue. Like if everybody's passionate about it, we'll be stepping on each other's feet a lot, especially because the way pull requests work, you can't merge them together.
Yes, like, we can't cooperate. You can.
This is not a platform for social community coding or whatever. I feel like it's really important that we have that tool that allows people to know, don't work on this, someone else is working on it. So I think we need that feature somehow, but we also need this other thing. And I don't know which tool should be used for which thing, but I think that we need to keep we need to figure something out.
So for example, I've assigned myself to an issue just now that its last comment was in 23rd of October 2016. So I'm obviously not working on that. That's what I'm saying, but it's something that I would like to get back to.
But you just assigned it to yourself right now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that indicates that you're about to start working on it and no one else should touch it.
No.
That's what it means. That's what you're just told everybody is don't work on this issue.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yes, you're right. That's what it means for you guys, but I'm disrupting you now by, yes, I'll try to use bookmarks. I'll find another way.
I mean, I think for now, like this is the process you have. And I know, like when I see you assigned to something like that, I can probably jump on it. But I think that like, on the documentation page, it's like, if you're going to work on an issue, assign it to yourself. So I think that we should figure out like, you might be the exception because you know everything about all the issues. Like you have this different view of the issue queue than everybody else, which I really respect. But we should figure out like if we decide to change the way assignments work, which I think is fine, we need to make sure we still have that tool so that you can say, I'm working on this issue, nobody else work on it until I'm done.
Yes. So yeah, I understand. I'm sorry about that. I'll stop doing it. I promise.
No.
But you said
I
under
don't
the
want you to
exception.
stop
So-
making it so you can do work.
Yes. No, I'll still keep working. I'm addicted to it, anyways. The thing is that, yeah, all I'm taking out of this is that you said that of the exception. So I'm taking this as I'm exceptional. So
Yes. I mean, and I think part of the reason you're doing
Oh.
this because there isn't another tool for that, right?
Yes.
Subscribing.
Yes.
And so I think that we need to figure that out. And even if it's like some third party add-on that we integrate with GitHub that allows individual queues or something, there's probably a solution for this already. We just need to figure out.
Yeah. So my thought of working on issues is this as well. So if I assign that the specific issue that's the old one that I've assigned to myself is not necessarily that I will work on a PR. I'll just revisit, see what others are doing, is just try to push it forward. But maybe what I need to get into the habit of is that just once I've done that, what I just said, unassign myself.
Yeah.
If I'm not planning to actually work on it anymore. Yeah. All right, cool.
Okay. Well, it is time for the weekly
Yes.
meeting. So I don't know if you think it's worth bringing this up in the weekly meeting, but I definitely think we should keep thinking about it.
It doesn't have to be a meeting thing, but yes, let's discuss. And if anyone has a good idea other than a browser bookmarks, because I already have way too many of those. But
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop the live stream and then we will start for the next meeting.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Bye.